Welcome everyone to the 12th Horseshoe podcast. I'm Elijah Weintraub, joined as always by Jack Rizzo. Jack, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, Eli. Obviously, a lot less nervous for this one,
Absolutely
obviously.
agree.
But again, welcome everybody to the 12th Horseshoe podcast here on Surge Sports TV for our second episode. Last week, we talked about the AFC schedule, and this week, we're going to talk about the NFC schedule.
Yes.
We have a couple things, though, before we get to each team individually. So let's not waste any more time. Eli, why don't you start us off?
Before we get to that, just an update about the name of the show. It's called the 12th Horseshoe podcast. For those of you who are new and just joining us, I'm a Seahawks fan representing the 12th man, and he's a Colts fan representing the Horseshoe. So yeah, and all right, let's get into the news. On Thursday, May 18th, Jim Brown, a legendary player, died on Thursday at the age of 87. He led the NFL in all-time rushing yards with 12,312 yards, and he averaged 104.3 yards per game. He had 126 touchdowns throughout his career, and he played for over 8 years with the Cleveland Browns. So that's pretty good. And of course, our thoughts and prayers do go with him and his family and around the NFL as well. Meanwhile, some other breaking news happened last night. Levi Stadium, home to the 49ers, will host the Super Bowl LX in 2026, which will now be on ESPN and ABC per the new contract and rules. And the Green Bay Packers will host the 2025 NFL Draft. Next year will be in Detroit, Michigan. And they're also QB3 will be coming. So for those of you who don't know, they're already having two quarterbacks. And now, just like I believe because of the Dallas incident, no, because of the 49ers incident, there will now be, you can have now up to two emergency quarterbacks, total of three on your roster at the same time. To retouch on the broadcasting rights, we'll start with CBS and Fox. There's cross-flexing schedule. So now CBS is now primarily home to most of the AFC, most of the NFC now, and Fox is now more primarily to AFC. ESPN will now get two Super Bowls in 2026 and 2030. They'll also have flex scheduling, wild card game, the draft, the Pro Bowl, as well as Saturday games on the final week of the season, and plus 23 games total. Peacock will also be getting a divisional round game. Plus, they will also be getting a week 15 game, at 4:30 p.m. I believe that'll be the Dolphins. I don't know. The Chargers will be playing the Bills that game, the one that will be on Peacock. And Thursday Night Football, as of yesterday, will now be able to have flex scheduling beginning in week 13 and 17, but they only NFL has confirmed they can only flex schedule for at least two games, and NBC will continue to host Sunday Night Football. Jack.
Yeah, it's obviously a lot to cover. A couple of other rule changes over the past couple of days. We learned today that the NFL has approved a rule that now fair catches on kickoffs will be at the 25-yard line automatically, similar to college. Um,
Yep.
Also, owner of my Colts, Jim Irsay, confirmed today that the NFL is extending Commissioner Roger Goodell, through the 2027 season. So some news around the league. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so obviously, Jim Brown, I think definitely the greatest running back of all time, revolutionized the position. Sad to see him go. I think the draft in Green Bay should be really good. Obviously, you have a great fan base there. It's going to be cold, even though
Yeah, it's gonna be cold, but
and
it
then
might be warm because it's April, but it's
I
Green Bay.
probably not.
Yeah.
And then Levi's hosting a Super Bowl exactly 10 years after Peyton Manning played his final game in Super Bowl 50. So, with that being said, let's talk about the first topic before we get into the games. Last week we talked about the international series, all the
Correct.
AFC teams. But this week I wanted to talk about the possibility of a potential international division. We've heard Roger Goodell come out and say that there is the possibility we could see them the NFL expand into Europe in the near future. We saw earlier today the announcement that 21 NFL teams will have expanding markets in foreign countries. So countries like Australia, Germany, Great Britain will be able to
Hosting
they'll be able to
NFL.
expand their market to those countries. So obviously the NFL is expanding internationally. We're already seeing them having 2 games in Germany this year. They obviously play 3 games in London every year. They play games in Mexico City. So Eli, do you think there's a possibility that within the near future we could see a potential international division in the NFL?
I don't think that there will be an international division. However, I do think that there could be a possible international week spread throughout the 18 weeks, or possibly an adding of a week. just because of the amount of new countries that they're now going to. I mean, they played in Mexico City, they did Germany, and they did London. And as you mentioned, they're doing Great Britain and Australia. So obviously, there's these new areas and new countries that are now going to be playing football at. I could see possibly in the future a week. A neutral site. One team every team plays at a different country, part of each season. However, I don't think that there will be a division team. If that is the case, I don't see it till after at least 2035, if not later on.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I think having an international visitor is a long shot. I think 32 teams is enough. I don't think they want to give more. I feel like that's
I
like
agree.
overkill. Although I do want to mention though that the Jacksonville Jaguars, the mayor of Jacksonville has come out and said that TIAA Bank Field, where they play their home games, might need renovations in which they would not be able to play there in 2025 and 2026. And there's no stadium near Jacksonville that has a capacity as high as TIAA Bank Field. So it's interesting to see, could they possibly, maybe play 2 seasons in London, all their home games? Obviously, they have a big market out there. They play once every year in London. It'll be twice this year.
Yeah,
I think
it would be
it
cool to
could
see
be a
them.
possibility.
It's a possibility. It'll be a really cool possibility. However, it's going to cost a lot, especially traveling to the United States back for an away game. That might cost a lot. However, it'd be really cool because then it finally gives the NFL a little taste, though, of like what it's like to play 8 to 9 games, possibly 7 to 9 games rather at London. So that'll be pretty cool to see, and I'm looking forward to see what happens. I don't think it'll go to London, but possibilities are endless. I mean, the way the NFL's been lately, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see an expansion. I think the more likely option will be relocation, but I don't see any team relocating overseas. That seems like a long shot. I mean, I think we could see maybe I could see the Chargers relocating. They don't seem to have much of a fan base. So maybe Mexico City they'll go to, but I just don't see an international division. I think they could
No,
obviously play more games in countries as the years go on, but I think an international division as a whole is
that sounds
um
too much
is a long
into
shot. And also
yeah.
considering that this is really the only country where our version of football is played. So
Yes,
it doesn't really make sense from a business standpoint, or really like a marketing standpoint.
yes,
So next up, let's start off with the we're obviously doing NFC this week. Let's start off with the Thanksgiving slate of games.
yep.
So there are obviously 3 Thanksgiving games. First game, 12:30 p.m. Fox. It'll be
The
correct me if I'm
Packers.
wrong, guy, but I believe it's Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers heading
Yes,
to Ford Field to take on Dan Campbell and the Lions. I think a good NFC North matchup there. I think 2 teams that are
that
obviously kind of, young, trying to like build for the future, specifically the Lions, who I think are going to take a big step forward this year. I think this is going to be a good smash mouth game on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to open up Thanksgiving because this is for the Lions, at least this is kind of like this rebuilding team that we're trying to see here. They're trying to earn that possible playoff spot. And for the Packers, this is the first series season without Aaron Rodgers coming back rather at all or not being on their bench or on the sideline at all. So this will be really cool to see how well they progress and play. And again, the Lions have been shown that the way the draft has been for them and everything. I'm excited to see what they have to offer and what they're in store for. It's gonna be a really good Thanksgiving matchup, and this might be an actual Thanksgiving matchup that I'm actually looking forward to compared to the previous years. It's like, okay, it's the Lions, here we go, just another day in the NFL, I guess.
Do want to mention that the Lions have not won a Thanksgiving game now since 2016 when they beat the Vikings by a field goal in Ford Field. So next Thanksgiving game, 4:30 on CBS, we have an NFC East matchup as it'll be the Commanders going to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Now we'll get to the Commanders in a bit because I have a lot of things to say about them, but I'm not really looking forward to this game too much.
No,
I think maybe I just don't really see the Commanders being that team this year. They play in a tough division. Obviously, getting rid of Dan Snyder is definitely going to help them. But even though I'm not really high on the Cowboys, I don't expect this to be really that much of a game.
I don't think this will be such much of a game. Of course, they have the eighth hardest schedule, the Commanders, and the Cowboys are the Cowboys. At the end of the day, at one point, they'll start off with a good offense and they'll start off with a good defense and then just mess up completely in the kicking, as we noticed in the wild card game. I'll get to more of my rant later on, but I'm just interesting to see. Like, it's a very, I guess, interesting matchup, I guess you could say, because the Cowboys and the Commanders are two teams where it's like, okay, well, they're okay, not really so much a going to the conference or championship or, you know, I don't know. I don't see this to be an exciting game on Thanksgiving. I think that might be the good like eating portion. Like, okay, let's just watch the see and just skip that part for Thanksgiving. Come back for the more important game at night.
Yeah, I agree with that. Last Thanksgiving, when you're obviously looking forward to Eli, we have another divisional matchup. So three divisional matchups on Thanksgiving this year. The NFC West matchup between really the only two teams that I think are going to be competitive in this division. You have the 49ers traveling to Lumen to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Eli, what do you think of that game? Do you think
I am
it's going to be a
super
good game?
excited. It's going to be a great game. Brock Purdy and Geno Smith, Thanksgiving. And remember, the last time the 49ers played the Seahawks, they won. And I'll get to more of that information on the Seahawks later on. But I can't wait for this matchup. And since we won the last time, let's keep it going,
Yeah, I love Thanksgiving football. It's honestly one of my favorite traditions.
especially Sunday night.
But I'm not too, but I think these games aren't the strongest, but I think we could see one of these games be maybe that last game, that primetime one, be the best of these
Absolutely.
games. So next up,
And possibly best of the week.
let's talk about some NFC primetime games. Now, Eli, you have after I did it last week, you have selected 7 NFC primetime games that you're looking forward to the most. So list them individually, and then we'll talk about them.
All right, we'll start with Monday night games. I'm most excited for Week 4. The Seahawks taking on the Giants. Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. I'm excited to see how well this team, the Seahawks, are going to play against them in New York. The last time was right before COVID in 2018, 2019 area when they last played Seahawks in LA team. And back then, Russell Wilson was on the team, and the Seahawks, of course, crushed the Giants at home, at the Giants' home. However, lately the Giants have seemed to be been the better team away. So it's a good matchup. We'll see how well the Seahawks can play, and two great quarterback matchups, and it's on Monday night, so that's really cool.
Yeah, we're gonna be there for that game.
Yes,
I don't. This is not the same Giants team as
no, this is not
2017, so this isn't
absolutely.
gonna be as easy of a win. It's definitely gonna be interesting. I think two quarterbacks who obviously broke out last year. They're both gonna show this year whether they're 1-year wonders or they're actually legit. And it's a good early season matchup, but maybe an NFC playoff preview. We'll see.
Yeah, and the next game up on the list is Week 17 for Monday night. That is 8:15 on ABC and ESPN. The Lions at the Cowboys. That is Saturday, the 30th of December. I'm excited for that game just because this is two teams where it's like, okay, they're possibly fighting for this last playoff potential spot. As these are rebuilding teams, and these are teams that are trying to re-enter the playoffs again. For the Lions, it could be for the first time in a long time, and for the Cowboys, just trying to get back in there. So this could be very important. It could be a crucial game at the end for these two teams trying to secure that last playoff spot, or might just totally end their season, or mean absolutely nothing when it comes time.
The Lions don't have a great history with the Cowboys. Lost that 2014 playoff game because
Yes.
of some controversial calls. Got destroyed last year on the road during that early stretch of the season where they were struggling. This is a different Lions team, though. This is a team that's going to play hard. They're going to, again, Dan Campbell gets the most out of his players. I love what they did in the offseason. I was really a fan of their first round picks, but other than that, I thought they had a great offseason. I think Jared Goff is actually really underrated. I think people just think he's not very good because obviously he was part of the Matthew Stafford trade. Of course, Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl in his first year. So obviously, that puts more pressure on Goff to succeed. But I think the Lions are going to win the NFC North this year. I think they're going to win this game. I think this is going to be a crucial game. I don't really see the Cowboys being that team. Definitely think they can make the playoffs, but I want to see the Lions show some fight there on Monday night in Week 17.
It's at Saturday, not Monday.
Saturday, okay.
Yes, because the whole New Year's Week 17 thing is very confusing. All right. The next game and the only Prime Video Thursday night game that I chose was week 3, Giants and 49ers. Why am I excited for that matchup? Because the Giants are going to be playing most of the NFC West teams. The 49ers is another rough team that really did incredible, unfortunately, at the last 10 games of their season. Obviously, I'm not a fan of the 49ers and Brock Purdy, but it'll be an interesting matchup to see between Brock Purdy and Daniel Jones to see what they have in store, and especially that's at 49ers territory. The Giants have been playing good lately, and it goes to show this could have been rather the NFC Championship game because if the Giants would have beat the Eagles, that would have been the matchup. So it would have been interesting. I can't wait to see this matchup. It's going to be a very exciting and very close game too.
The Giants have 4 primetime games in the first 6 weeks of the season, so it's gonna be interesting to see how they adapt to if they're ready for the big stage. The question is though, is Brock Purdy gonna be back for this game? He had a UCL surgery, I believe in
Yep.
March. He should be ready for the start of the season, but you never know.
We'll have to wait and
At
see.
least they have serviceable backups. You got Trey Lance, you got Sam Darnold, so they don't have to rush him back necessarily. But
Correct.
I think it's gonna be a good game. I think these are 2 teams. Obviously, the Niners, we know they're maybe have the best roster in the league, top to bottom. The Giants, well, I think they're going to still be good this year, and I think they have a chance to take that next step forward.
Absolutely. The next game is, well, the next 5 games rather are going to 4 games. Sorry, will be for Sunday Night Football on NBC. The first one, Week 1, Cowboys Giants. I'm excited for that one because it's the first opening game, and the Giants open up on Sunday night of their season, and they're home, and they're versing the Cowboys, a division rival, which ultimately tests these 2 teams like how well, who's going to be this number 1 seed, who's going to be in the number 2 seed. This is like the matchup like I'm most looking forward to because of that reason.
The Giants and the Cowboys have a long history of Week 1 games. Most of them are played at AT&T, but this one's at MetLife. I think this is going to be just like a really fun game to watch. I think the Giants might be better than the Cowboys, honestly. On paper, definitely not, but I think they have the chance to. Now, the Giants do have the 3rd hardest schedule in the league. They're tied for the 3rd hardest, and I believe the Cowboys are as well. I believe they both are tied for the 3rd hardest, and that obviously that includes playing each other. It's gonna be interesting to see, you know, Daniel Jones. Obviously, the Cowboys have a very good defense, so it's gonna be interesting to see how he does. Obviously, Giants did not fare well last year against Dallas. Their offense struggled mightily in those games, and of course, Saquon Barkley, the contract issue he has, he's holding out of OTAs. So will he be? Will he have his contract by week 1? Because if you don't have Saquon Barkley, that pretty much takes away half your offense. But I'm really excited for this game. I think it might be a defensive battle, honestly.
Absolutely agree. The next one on my list is Week 12, Thanksgiving Night Football. 49ers Seahawks. I mean, we talked about that. Do you want to add anything before? I mean, I'll talk about that more later on. So should we just move along?
Yeah, we can move along. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. The next one, week 14, Eagles Cowboys on December 10th. I'm excited because this is possibly fighting for that number 1 spot, possibly, or getting close to that number 2 spot, or clinching a playoff spot. So I'm super excited for that matchup. And these are teams that are playoff contenders. Eagles, of course, coming off after their Super Bowl loss by a field goal to the Chiefs. And the Cowboys are okay. They got lucky with Buccaneers, but then when they play 49ers, it ultimately just crashed down.
It's going to be interesting to see what the Eagles look like this year. They did lose both of their coordinators in the
Yes, they
offseason.
did.
They did lose Jonathan Gannon to the Cardinals, their defensive coordinator. They lost their offensive coordinator, Shade Steichen, to us, the Colts. So I don't expect this team, though, to take that much of a dip. Jalen Hurts is probably a top 5 quarterback. He's got that dual threat ability. As long as he stays healthy, as long as that shoulder is not an issue, and it didn't really seem like it in the postseason.
Yep.
The Eagles, though, they have struggled in Dallas. They have not won a game at AT&T since 2017 now. So we'll see if they can break that curse here. Obviously, last year they played at Dallas with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. Actually played well in that game, but ended up losing. I really do think, though, that this year the Eagles are just going to be miles ahead of the Cowboys. I think the Eagles are going to stay the same, maybe even go up. Cowboys are going to drop down to maybe like a 9 or 10 win team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like those thoughts. And the final game that I chose for the NBC Sunday night game and the last one on the list, Packers Vikings New Year's Day and New Year's Eve game. It's at night on December 31st, week 17. ultimately, what I'm looking forward in this Packers Vikings matchup, a potential first round playoff spot. I don't think for any of these teams that they're going to really fight for another lower spot in the playoffs. However, I feel like this could be a number one battle spot for these two teams.
I don't really see the Vikings being the same team that they were last year, and I'll get to that in a later why.
Yes,
But I think this is gonna be a good game. I think more so this is gonna be a battle for a wild card spot because I really do think that the Lions are the best team in this division, and I wouldn't overlook the Bears either. I think the Bears are gonna improve this year.
absolutely.
Obviously, this is gonna be a big test for Jordan Love on the road, and a series that's been dominated by the home team over the last couple of years. But it should be an interesting game. Good NFC North battle there, New Year's Eve.
Yep, and that is it for the primetime games. We'll move on to team by team now. Unless Jack, you have any other thoughts?
Nope. You picked a nice slate of primetime games there. I think the NFC
Thank
is
you.
the weaker conference of the two, but I think overall they might, when the top teams play each other, I think they're honestly the best matchups, even beating the AFC. So now let's get into each team individually. Let's
Oh
start
yeah,
off
but
with the team. Let's start off with the team that I think is by far the worst roster in the league right now. That's the Arizona Cardinals. Eli, you're not gonna have to worry about the Cardinals competing this year. I can say that with confidence. First of all, it was their quarterback. Kyler Murray's not gonna
uh,
be ready for the start of the season. They don't really have anybody on their roster. They drafted a quarterback. Is he really gonna be ready to start week one though? Like we don't even know. They could have I don't even know. They could have Kendall Hinton out there at this point.
yeah,
It
I don't
really
know.
is up in the air.
Well, again, like I said, it doesn't affect the Seahawks, so I'm not really too careful, like really care about the Cardinals this year. However, yes, you're right. The quarterback situation is going to be a huge issue. Of course, Kyle Murray, he tore his ACL back in December. He missed. He's expected to miss the opening games according to ESPN, as you mentioned. And Coach Jonathan from the Cardinals tells the media that he is making progress and he's adapted well to the offensive plays and learning structure during classroom work. So we'll see how well he plays there. Um, I don't know who's gonna be their quarterback. To be honest with you, their their draft pick could be possibly their ultimate hope there. Yeah, I really don't know. This Cardinals team is just gonna be like this straight dead shot, I guess.
I do like the Paris Johnson Jr. pick in the draft. I thought they were going to go defense, and their defense is going to be terrible. We can already say that with confidence. They have the 11th hardest schedule in the league this year,
Yeah.
.519 winning percentage. I picked Week 11 at Houston to be their best game. I think you got two teams that are obviously entering new phases. They both got new head coaches. Let's take a look at their schedule. They'll open up on the road against the Commanders. Obviously playing the Niners and Seahawks twice a year, that's pretty much four guaranteed losses there.
I mean,
That
we
probably
can't
makes
say
you feel good,
guarantee
Eli.
because
And then you also
I
play the NFC,
for the 49ers, I don't really care.
you
I mean,
also
as long as
play the
the
AFC
Seahawks win.
North, the best division, might maybe the best division in the league, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I'm looking forward to the Seahawks Cardinals game because this could ultimately possibly help the Seahawks in week 18 or just could downfall both of these teams just as easily. So I'm super excited for that matchup.
I can definitely see Caleb Williams in the Cardinal red. That definitely feels like a possibility. All right, next up, a team that I'm actually very interested to watch this year. That would be the
That has no
Atlanta
primetime games.
Falcons, who, yes, the Cardinals and the Falcons. Thank you, Eli. Both have zero primetime games. They joined the Texans and the Colts with no primetime games this year. I think the Falcons are going to be an interesting team to watch this year. I think they're going to really improve. They obviously played a weak division. Bijan Robinson was a questionable pick in round one, but again, he's going to really help that offense both out of the back, both catching and rushing the ball. I think Desmond Ritter is going to take a big step forward this year. I like Arthur Smith as their coach. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, some nice weapons there. Good offensive line. Made a lot of good signings in free agency as well. They also have the easiest schedule in the league this year, .417 winning percentage. They're going to open up at home against the Carolina Panthers. And I can't wait to see them go to London in week 4 to play the Jags. So it
Yes.
could be a high scoring offensive game. And I think the Falcons could be the dark horse team in the NFC South this year.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited, as you mentioned, Jack, for the Falcons Jaguars game in London. I can't wait to see how well these two teams play. And with their eighth round pick, Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, it's going to be very exciting to see how well this Falcons team is going to play and how well they're going to adapt. Obviously, I don't expect them to be a Super Bowl team or go into the playoffs at all. However, it just could be another fun rebuilding season, if you ask me, for this team. And of course, as we mentioned last week for the Colts, Matt Ryan joined CBS's analysis, the former Falcon and Colt, but did not announce his retirement. That was announced back on Monday, the 15th.
Yeah, so the Falcons will open up on week one, taking on the Carolina Panthers. They get to play the AFC South this year, which is probably the other worst division league. So both Souths are not very good. So and also finishing in last year, that allows them to have an easier schedule. And I think this could be a team that wins like 8, 9, maybe even 10 games. I don't know. I just like this team. It's probably an unpopular opinion, but hey, the Falcons are a team I'm going with this year. So next
Yeah.
up, let's talk about their division rival, the Carolina Panthers, the team that gave up the farm to move from 9 to 1 in the draft. Of course, got Bryce Young. Obviously, hired Frank Reich as their new coach. Obviously, Colts fan know a lot about Frank Reich. I'm concerned though about the weapons that Bryce Young is going to have. He doesn't have anybody. DJ Moore is gone. He was part of that trade to Chicago. Christian McCaffrey was traded last trade deadline to the 49ers. So who is Bryce Young going to be throwing the ball to? It's really my concern.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, obviously they made an excellent choice by choosing Bryce Young in the first round and the first pick. However, like you said, Jack, who's he going to throw it to? That's one thing that they struggled on. And how is their defense going to hold? Is this team going to how well is this team going to benefit? They have two primetime games, which I'm shocked about. One on Monday night and one on Prime Video Thursday night. I'm excited for the Panthers Falcons game opening week. I can't wait to see what Bryce Young and then this entire Carolina Panthers team is going to have in store. And it's a great test, I think you could say, because the Falcons are like this rebuilding team, as we mentioned.
Panthers have the sixth easiest schedule in the league this year, 0.453. I like the matchup week 2 versus the Saints on Monday night. Derek Carr versus Bryce Young.
True.
Probably a good division matchup for the next 5 years or so. The one concern obviously with Bryce Young, and we get a chat here from Undisputed Colts Online. He is somebody who really does go at it. He mentions Adam Thielen and Mingo. Adam Thielen, I think he is a solid receiver, honestly. But by himself, though, he had Justin Jefferson last year, and he's old. He has some injury issues. Obviously, he was a late bloomer, which is a great thing to see. But by himself in Carolina, I just don't see how that's going to work. Bryce Young over Levis was a terrible choice. No, it was not. I know you talk about this a lot, but I think Bryce Young was the right choice.
Absolutely.
Really, I obviously his size is a concern. We can all agree on that. He's gonna play at about 180 pounds. It's not ideal for a quarterback. But I like they have a solid offensive line. It's pretty underrated. And I actually like their defense too. It's just a matter of who's he gonna throw the ball to. But I think the Panthers have an outside shot at winning the NFC South this year. But really every team has a shot at winning the NFC South because it's just a really weak division.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I can't wait to see what this Panthers have in store. And for Chicago now, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. How ironic. This is Undisputed. The person who was just in the chat, this is his least favorite team, the Chicago Bears. Jonathan Mingo is legit. Only time will tell. But yeah, his least favorite team, the Chicago Bears.
Which is up next.
I think I like the Bears this year. I think Justin Fields. I love the trade, the trade out of the number 1 pick. Ryan Pauls deserves a statue of himself outside of Soldier Field just for that. Getting all that draft capital and then realizing after, a few weeks later that, there was no consensus number 1 quarterback. That was such a smart move. They got Justin Fields legit number 1 in DJ Moore. I think the offensive line is also going to improve. They took Darnell Wright in the draft. Their defense is still a concern, but they signed a couple of good linebackers in free agency. They have the 13th easiest schedule in the league this year, 0.497. And this is a team that's going to be loaded for the future. They have a ton of draft capital. He's 5'10", 185. He's going to get cooked. Yeah, that's definitely a concern, but at least the Panthers have a solid offensive line in place. So I think he could. It's an issue, but in the end, I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the Bears week 1 matchup.
I agree.
Again,
I was just going to say that.
Packers.
And as Whole About Sports podcast, the NFC South is definitely wide open this year. A lot at stake for this team, as you mentioned. And going back to the Bears, I'm really excited for the Packers Bears game. Week 1, as you mentioned, Jack, it's super exciting to see them play. Justin Fields is going to be great to see how they play. And with Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle from Tennessee, as the 10th round pick, it'll be great to see how well they work and how well this Bears team can rebuild and come back this season.
Definitely makes sense that they have the Packers and Bears in week 1. This is the oldest rivalry in the NFL, being played at the
Wow.
oldest stadium in the NFL currently in Soldier Field. Next up, let's talk about a team that we all like to make fun of because they have not made the NFC Championship game now since 1996. Let's talk about those boys down in Dallas, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Eli, I'm going to let you start this one. Go ahead.
Yeah. Coach Mike McCarthy. Yeah, I think the first thing I want to talk about is their kicking. After the Buccaneers wild card game and the kicking, that team, every single player on that team should learn how to kick at this point because all their options should be open. And Jack, are you ready to start kicking for the Cowboys? Because at this point, they're looking for anybody. They're absolutely desperate at this point. And as Undisputed Colts Online heel says, Fields is a bottom tier passer in the league. DJ Moore isn't moving the needle on them. Okay, and
No, I definitely don't agree with that. He didn't have any good receivers last year. Like Darnell Mooney is not a true number one. DJ Moore is a true number one, and he got it done with nobodies in Carolina. And Fields is better than any quarterback he's ever had in Carolina. Cam Newton wasn't really the same when he got drafted, so I don't even count him. But yeah, the
yeah,
Cowboys, we're gonna
yeah,
be kicking for them at this point.
yeah, I can't wait
But
to see them. And of course, their quarterback, the offense did really good, especially during that Buccaneers game. However, their defense, also did okay. But at the end of the day, it comes out to kicking and who they play. And if you look at their strength of schedule this year, they're the third hardest with a .549 as their schedule rank. And
yeah,
kicking needs improvement. And the special team coach is trying to look forward.
yeah, it's gonna be tough. I want to talk about though that play that ended their season, having Ezekiel Elliott go to center, snap the ball,
Yeah,
got ran over, and then they sacked or they dumped it off to him, and then he got destroyed. That pretty much sums up the Cowboys over the last 25 years. Anyways, with their schedule, open up on the road against the Giants, third hardest schedule as Eli mentioned. Week 15 at Buffalo is the game I'm looking most forward to. They'll expect the Bills to run over the Cowboys in that
I'm
one.
excited for the Seahawks game because it's the Seahawks and the Cowboys. The Seahawks are a good team, and the Cowboys, well, yeah. And they have 6
All right,
primetime games this year, plus the Thanksgiving Day game. Excuse me, as always.
next up, let's head to the other Thanksgiving team, and a team that I actually like to talk about. Let's talk
Yeah,
about the Detroit Lions. One of my favorite teams in league, honestly. If the Colts didn't win the Super Bowl this year, I think the Lions would be my team that I would want to win. Um, obviously, last year started the season rough, started 1-6, and then they won 8 of their final 10 games to finish 9-8. Obviously, took out the Packers in the final week. I think they had a really good offseason, in all honesty. They got CJ Gardner Johnson, a really cheap deal, led the league in interceptions last year. I didn't really like their draft. I didn't like the Jahmyr Gibbs or Jack Campbell picks, but we'll just have to see. I did like the Brian Branch pick, though. And of course, they
yes.
also took Hendon Hooker to be potential long term replacement. They undisputed. You could keep chiming in here. We're not going to read all of them because we have to carry on with the show. But they have the 13th easiest schedule this year, 0.495. We talked about this last week, but I'm looking forward to a week 1 opener against Kansas City. Great opportunity for them.
Yeah, absolutely. A great opportunity and a great test. And of course, with QB Hendon Hooker questionable for training camp with this knee injury, I'm excited to see what this Lions team has in store. How well have they rebuilt? How well are they? And are they a playoff team? That's the question. And can they do it? And this is a
I
great
definitely
test right
think they
here
can.
against the
I
Super
just
Bowl
think,
champs, the Chiefs.
yeah, I'm excited for that opener. Now just 107 days away from that game, which feels crazy to say. I can't wait for
Wow.
that one. Let's go to their division rival, the team they took out last year. This is not on purpose. The Green Bay Packers. First up, Aaron Rodgers is gone. That's pretty much all we need to say. Jordan Love is
Yes.
in. And some things haven't changed though. They still refuse to take wide receivers in the first round of the draft. JSN was right there, and of course the Seahawks ended up getting him. What do you think of the Packers offseason? And do you think, Eli, that they could potentially have success this year with Jordan Love?
Yes, I have a feeling that they will have success because a lot of their problems the Green Bay had was because of Rodgers ultimately. So now the Jets get a little bit of that failure, but mostly some success. I would say a lot failure though. I'm excited to see this Packers team, and I feel like this team is going to do a lot better than ever before. And I feel like they're going to prove like Seattle did with Russell Wilson on the trade to Denver. This is a team that's going to say, "Hey, we just made it to the wild card game," something that we didn't do last year is my prediction. And I feel without Aaron Rodgers, this team is going to benefit from it. Jordan Love, we'll see how well he plays. And they obviously have a huge test against the Bears for the opening week one. Am I most excited, looking forward to? Obviously, not only just week one, the Giants, Packers, week 14 game. Will Aaron Rodgers attend that game that it's in MetLife?
We'll have to see the Jets play that week. You definitely take an interesting stand there with the fact that you think Rodgers leaving is going to benefit. And I almost agree with you in a way because during his last few years there at Green Bay, there's definitely a lot of side distractions. Obviously, the whole COVID thing, which I'm not going to get into. I don't want to get political. Um, Obviously, every year, was he going to leave? Was he not going to leave? Obviously, the whole thing with him calling out his receivers in training camp. But Jordan Love going in there, just obviously new fresh face, not really knowing what to expect. I think this could help them, but at the same time, you just lost your franchise quarterback who brought you a Super Bowl, carried you for several years. But in the end, I think he did hurt them in a way. So I do think Jordan Love is going to help, and I'm looking forward to their Week 13 Sunday nighter at home against Kansas City. So next up,
Absolutely.
let's move on to the Los Angeles Rams, who had the worst record ever last year for a defending Super Bowl champion, won just 5 games. First question: if Matthew Stafford and Cooper Cup can stay healthy and they can reestablish their connection that they had in the postseason a couple years ago, can they return to contention?
No. Flat out no. They got lucky the one game. The Bengals should have won that game in the Super Bowl. At the end of the day, it came down to luck. And even if they do stay healthy together and they rebuild and come back well, I don't see them really changing this team. Okay, maybe they have a chance at a playoff spot, possibly even a wild card game, but I don't know about going back to a Super Bowl, being that team that they were just 2 years ago.
Eli showing his Seahawks bias there. But no, you do bring up a good point, though. This team definitely is older. They don't really have a lot of salary crap. Obviously, Aaron Donald alone is good enough to make this team competitive. And Sean McVay is a really, really good head coach. I mean, still the youngest coach in the league. Brought a new wave of young coaches into the league. I mean, they drafted Stetson Bennett, which was like honestly funny in a way, but in a way, it also kind of makes sense because Matt Stafford and Bennett both went to the University of Georgia. We'll see if he ever gets a chance to start. They do have the ninth hardest schedule this year, 0.533, and they will have a Super Bowl rematch in Week 3 as they travel to Cincinnati for Monday Night Football.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that game, and I'm also excited to see the Week One game versus the Seahawks. How well are they going to play? Who's the better team? What is this going to determine for the rest of the season? And of course, being at the Seahawks home in Lumen Field, I'm super excited for that matchup. And of course, with Cooper Cup out with the ankle injury, he's questioned for the Week One start. Definitely out for training camp, so it'll be definitely very close and interesting to see how well the team is going to progress, how well they play. Go Seahawks when they play the Rams.
We'll see how that questionable thing is for Cooper Cup because we're still 110 days away from that game, so it could obviously
Yes,
change.
it
But
could.
next up, let's move on to maybe the most interesting team in the NFL last year, the Minnesota Vikings. First up, 13-4 last year, NFC North champs. I don't think any of us were expecting that. We all thought the Packers were gonna be, the
Win it
best team
again.
again in their division. A lot of people picked them to win the Super Bowl. I do want to mention though, they were 13-4, but 13-4, I believe. But they were
Yep.
11-0 in one-score games last year. That is not.
Yeah.
There is no way that's gonna happen again next year. So I definitely don't
Yeah.
think this team's gonna be as good. Kirk Cousins, I feel like
Yeah.
helps this team, but I feel like he also holds them back. We saw the way that playoff game ended last year. I do like the Jordan Addison pick and round one. He and Justin Jefferson, I think, could be the best duo in the league at wide receiver. They have a 497 strength of schedule, 15th easiest, and talk about that aforementioned game against Green Bay on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, what I could say is just want to start with two things. The Vikings, we saw with the Vikings versus that Colts game where the Vikings were down miserably in the first half. Sorry, Jack, I have to bring it up. Was just incredible. And the fact that somehow They won that game. Was incredible. Sorry about that, Colts. Jack. But then that team that we saw during the regular season was not the same team that we saw in the playoffs. A huge disappointment. The Giants obviously were the better team, but how they got there was shocking. How they ended wasn't too bad. Wasn't too shocking. They were either gonna be out that round, if not the next round, just like the Cowboys. So
I was actually happy that we lost that game because it helped us get Anthony Richardson. So all good.
yeah, so all good for you guys. And I'm excited for the Vikings Buccaneers opening game for week 1. A lot at stake, a lot at tests, and the Eagles, because the Eagles match up with the Vikings because, well, that was a rematch of the Minneapolis Miracle. Will it happen again?
Yep. Next up, the New Orleans Saints bringing in Derek Carr. I'm not a big fan of the move. It's 4 years, 150 million. That feels like a lot for a quarterback that's always inconsistent, that's never won a playoff game before. Never won a playoff game before. Had a great team last year. Raiders had one of their best looking teams in years, and they won 6 games. But if this team is healthy, the Saints team, they're definitely the best team in this division on paper. They're always gonna have a good defense. They have obviously Michael Thomas at receiver. You have Jawad Johnson, Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Always have a good O line. Derek Carr is gonna make or break this team. They'll open up at home against our division rivals, the Titans. I like their Week 13 matchup against the Lions. They have the second easiest schedule in the league this year, right behind their division rival, the Falcons.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the Titans Saints matchup because of how well, not how well, how interesting they played last year, and this can obviously determine, as you mentioned, Jack. They were 7-10 last year. They have the second easiest schedule with 0.427, so a lot at stake there. I'm excited for the Titans Saints game, as I just mentioned, just because of like Derek Carr are trying to like get back to this rebuilding phase, trying to earn this team the spot and show that hey, we're capable, we're good, we can do this, and super excited overall for this team. Not too many injuries, so that is really the number one, I guess, benefit, if you could say, for them.
Yeah, they have not been able to stay healthy. We saw Marshawn Lattimore last year miss a lot of time. But I think they're going to be. I hope they can stay healthy this year because this is definitely a talented team if they do. Next up, a team that I'm excited to talk about personally,
Yes.
the New York Giants, a team that surprised everyone last year, going 9-7-1. Brian Dable's first year, made the playoffs as a wild card, beat the Vikings on the road. Obviously, they got destroyed by the Eagles, but this is a team that I think is going to build on this year. I think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. He's not elite, but he's at least good enough to win them games. Now, I am concerned about the receiver. They don't really have a true number one right now. We'll see if any of them can develop this year. They will have the third hardest schedule this year, a 0.549. They're gonna have a lot of pressure on them for primetime games in the first 6 weeks. Levis will be a dog in that game. What game? Titans Saints game? Is he even gonna start? Okay, and I am looking forward to that Week 6 Sunday nighter against Buffalo. That's gonna be a good matchup. I'm expecting the Bills to win, obviously, but I mean Josh Allen.
I mean, you never know.
Sometimes he just does not look good out there. A little inconsistent over these last few years, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, for me, I'm super excited for the Week 16 Christmas Day game. It's against the Eagles at Philadelphia. Super excited that I know the Seahawks. I wanted to pick them, but I think I'm really excited for that one because it's a Christmas Day game in Philadelphia. Could possibly at the end ultimately determine the number one seed in the NFC East. And for these two teams, there is a lot at stake and a lot of risk, really, for these two teams. Daniel Jones did an excellent job this year rather. Brian Dabble, the head coach for the Giants, did an incredible job. I think nothing more positive you could say about this Giants team. I'm really excited to see what they have in store this year. And last year, I kind of predicted that they would really go far and possibly go to the Super Bowl, but I was wrong because they lost to the Eagles. No one thought that they would do that. However, yeah, I'm super excited what they have in store. And with the number 24 pick, Deontay Banks, as their cornerback from Maryland, a lot is ready to happen. And super excited. And the Giants hire former executive for the Titans and Panthers, Ryan Cotton, for the front office. So that'll be really cool to see.
Okay, so he said Yes, he will be because he's the clear number one in this draft. Well, it doesn't really matter what you think. It matters what the Titans think. That's really what matters. Are they? I mean, Ryan Tannehill has a huge contract to be sitting on the bench, and you can't really cut him. So I think you just have to start him. I think it's better too to let him learn. And then somebody said Levis will start all year. I don't think that's true. I think he's going to start eventually, but I don't see him starting week one. Anyways, let's move on to the reigning NFC champion, the Philadelphia Eagles, pretty much bring back the same core from last year. We know they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. So many great games to look forward to, particularly that Christmas Day game, as you mentioned, Week 13 versus San Francisco, NFC Championship rematch. They have a primetime game at home against Miami, which I'm looking forward to. They do have the hardest schedule, though, in the league this year at 566. The concern, I think, with this team, though, is going to be their secondary. I think they have a young secondary, I think. So we'll see if they're ready for prime time yet.
Yeah, I'm obviously the come off after a disappointing loss in the Super Bowl to the Eagles by a field goal kick. I was extremely disappointed with that because I really wanted to see the Eagles go far and actually win a Super Bowl. This year, I feel like this Eagles team might be seeing a struggle. Although Jalen Hurts is going to play well, he's going to play great. However, with this new defensive coordinator Sean Desai and offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, it's going to be very interesting to see how well they play because this is not the team that you're going to see that to just a couple months ago in the Super Bowl. Now that they have new coaches on the team, with their picks with Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, that could ultimately help this team. However, fitting into this potential error of these new coaches is going to be the key issue. I'm really excited for the Week 16 versus the Seahawks game and the Week 17 versus the Giants. Those are my two most exciting games. And the biggest injury is the backup quarterback Marietta was questionable with the knee injury, sorry. And Barnett, defenseman, end with a knee ACL, also questionable. And the hardest schedule in the NFL, that really is going to give this team a huge struggle this year. However, they can definitely do it.
Yeah, they're definitely, I think, maybe the most talented team. I think Nick Sirianni's a great coach. I don't think they're going to be too affected by the loss of their coordinators. It is something to keep an eye on, though. And those injuries that you mentioned, they're not. I don't think they're really that concerned. They're both not starters anyway, so I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. Um, One more team, Eli, before we get to the Seahawks, but we have to get through your division rivals first. The San Francisco 49ers, the team that made it to the NFC Championship game last year, the team that was the reason why the NFL just implemented this new rule where you could dress a third quarterback for game day. Now, the 49ers, to me, they have the best roster in the NFL, top to bottom. Javon Hargrave was a brilliant signing in free agency. I don't really think losing Mike McGlinchey is going to hurt them, honestly. He wasn't that good. The Broncos overpaid him. Um, they have a lot of games that I'm looking forward to, and they only have the 15th hardest schedule in the league. It's just going to be a matter of, is Brock Purdy ready for week one, or they have to start Lance or Darnold, and is Purdy going to be able to stay healthy the whole year?
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, I don't like them. I hope they have a rough season, and super excited to see them play the Giants this year because I'm scared when they play the Seahawks. Most excited for the Thanksgiving game and of course the Giants game, but I don't want to talk too much about the 49ers. So Jack, just keep talking about the 49ers.
Yeah. I just we're gonna get Seahawks in just a second, but you just go through
You're
this
good, man.
roster. It's loaded. Christian McCaffrey is your running back, one of the top tight ends in George Kittle, a great 1-2 and wide receiver with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. You've got a great offensive line, one of the best defenses too, with Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, now Javon Hargrave in the front seven. Solid secondary as well. I mean, they took a kicker in the third round. That shows how loaded their roster is. Um,
Yeah.
so, I hate to break it to you, Eli, but the Niners are the clear best team in this division. But if you
Yes,
want to make
Jack,
your
I'm
argument now,
aware.
go ahead. Start with the Seahawks.
All right, let's go. Let's roll with it. The biggest surprise, of course, in the NFL season last year was the Seahawks. Nobody thought they would make it to a wild card game with Geno Smith. Hey, turns out they did, and they did awesome. I'm very proud of them. I had a feeling we were going to lose, but because it's the 49ers. But I mean, we had a chance, though. We had the lead to an extent, which I was super proud about. And listen, Geno Smith did awesome last year. He did incredible. Nobody thought he would play the way he did, and he was awesome. And I'm so proud of that Seahawks team last year. and they prove Russell Wilson wrong. The Seahawks are, of course, the biggest problem, of course, is their run defense. Their run defense is the biggest issue. In order to return the playoffs, we need to stop the runs and defeat this tough 49ers team. Pete Carroll and John Schneider are trying to rebuild this team. They're doing an excellent job with it. With the 5th overall pick with Devon Witherspoon and Bobby Wagner coming back, this is really going to help this defense out. And what those two have done is just incredible. And I'm super excited to see what they have in store. And the Seahawks used their 2nd-round pick to select Jackson Smith Nijigba,
And
who is
Jigba.
still gotta get used to the names. I'm super excited for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They're the crucial part to the Seahawks team, and without them, I don't know how the Seahawks will be. And they're in a rebuilding mode, and they could definitely possibly win the series if they can somehow, if Brock Purdy isn't like so healthy, come back to the start of the season. Super excited for this Thanksgiving game versus the 49ers. Tyler Lockett got a huge contract with $37 million guaranteed, and DK Metcalf with $4 million for a 4-year deal. So super excited about that. And Geno Smith deserves his new contract because of what he did this year. So proud of that, and can't wait for Thanksgiving versus the 49ers.
Yeah, let's just move on. You look
You
straight
think I
to the
said
point. Let's move right on to
No thoughts, Jack?
they're gonna be good. Let's move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A team that this is probably a team that has taken a huge downfall from Super Bowl champions to now. They're in a terrible position. They don't really have a lot of cap space. They have Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. I think this is the worst team in the NFC South. Now they only have the 11th easiest schedule, which is crazy. I mean, they won the division last year with a losing record. I don't really know. I just don't think they're going to be that good this year. If I had to pick a game I'm looking forward to, I'll go with a Week 14 matchup on the road against Atlanta.
Yeah, obviously, I feel without Tom Brady, that's the end of the line for the Buccaneers. They're going to be the team like they were before Tom Brady got to the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers and Buccaneers fans should be extremely happy that they got their Super Bowl win. But that's it for them. We're not going to see it for a long time. With Baker Mayfield, yeah, they'll do good, but I don't see them again in the playoffs for a long time. Their 19th pick, Elijah Cansey, might help them out a lot. Cowboys did an excellent job last year, but the Cowboys, though, they missed 4 field goal kicks, and you're telling me you couldn't come back in that game? Sorry.
They were all extra points.
Got a little bit of message. Yeah, I know, but still, that could have changed the game ultimately. I mean, look at the Vikings and the Colts game. I was going to use that example. Sorry about the Colts and Jack. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm super excited for the Bills game.
I don't really see much of the Bucs this year. I'm not really gonna be paying too much attention to them. Obviously Tom Brady now purchased a stake in the Raiders, which again, I mean, whatever. I really don't care. The Raiders still stink. Let's go now to a team that I've wanted to talk about, let out my feelings for. That is the Washington Commanders. The last team we're going to talk about here. Dan Snyder, the worst owner in North American professional sports, and it's our owner, Jim Irsay, has called them out several times, and he is a hero for doing that. I have a list of things here that Dan Snyder has done in his ownership that have been tyrannical, barbaric, and idiotic. He has created a toxic work environment. He has the worst stadium in the league, lowest fan attendance. He banned signs at the stadium temporarily. A couple of years ago, poop water rained down on some fans at the stadium. We saw in 2021, the fence fell down at the stadium when Jalen Hurts was walking back to the locker room. So several fans fell down onto the field, and he is just such a bad owner. I'm so glad that he's going to be gone. That's great for their franchise. I think Sam Howell's going to be I think he's a solid quarterback. Interesting to see that they decide to go with him. I thought Will Levis would have been a good pick for them in the draft. But I think Sam Howell has potential. He's got a good arm. They have one of the best defenses in the league. Now, they do have the 8th hardest schedule in the league this year, and they're going to come here to MetLife in Week 16 to take on the Jets. That's a game I'm looking most forward to.
Yeah, I think you really said it all about John Snyder. Really quick, they're trying to be purchased by Josh Harris, who is part of the Devils and 76ers organizations. So interesting to see if there are going to be bought there. And I believe, did it happen, Jack, yet? I think. I don't think they did yet.
No, not they still have to approve it, which is gonna happen, I think, next month. Correct me
Okay,
if
so
I'm
we'll have
wrong.
to. Yeah, I believe so. I think you're right about that. And Emmanuel Forbes, their cornerback from Mississippi State, as their 16th pick. Interested to see how well they play. I'm super excited for the Commanders Broncos game. As much as I'm not a fan of Russell Wilson, the Broncos, just this is a team where this could help this team a lot, or show hey they don't really have potential. I mean, because the Broncos are okay, but maybe with Sean Payne they might be better this year. And with Drew Wright out, the linebacker with a knee injury, he is questionable for the first start date. Definitely out for week 1. Sources confirm.
Yeah, I think they are the worst team in this division. I don't see a lot of them this year. So that's actually it for all the NFC teams.
Yeah,
Eli, do you have any more final thoughts before we wrap this up?
let's. Do you want to talk about I think the best 3 week 1 NFC games?
Go ahead.
All right, yeah. These are my 3 picks. I'm not going to just explain. Just go through the list. 425 Fox, Packers, Bears, and 425 Fox, Rams, Seahawks, and the Cowboys, Giants Sunday night on NBC. Super excited for those games. A lot at stake, and really is going to prove a lot during this season. And yeah, I'm super excited for week 1, and yeah, ready for the Seahawks to go 17-0.
Yeah, whatever.
Just like the
but
Colts.
anyways, it's been really fun to cover the schedule of these last 2 episodes. Thank you guys all for joining us. From here on out, until the NFL season starts, we're probably going to do an every other week show because there's not going to be as much news to talk about. But obviously,
so
thank
we're
you
gonna
once again
skip.
for joining us for the 12th Horseshoe podcast. For Elijah Weitraub, I'm Jack Rizzo signing off here on Surge Sports TV, and we'll see
We'll
you
see you
all
in 1
next
week.
time.
Yes.